Hello and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week, we watched a classic and its recent remake.
I'm so excited.
We watched Hocus Pocus.
Book.
And it is something, I don't know. I feel like this is so emblematic of like this show, right?
Yeah.
Like it is this nostalgic touchstone for so many of us 80s and early 90s kids. It was hugely important, at least for me. I'm so excited to like really dig into it and have a conversation about the nostalgia of it and what it meant and all of that. It's just I'm pumped. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I'm very excited. What's your history with Hocus Pocus? Let's get into that.
Oh, it was I think probably from like 4 years old or so, I would watch it so regularly, so frequently. It was one of those first movies that I watched. I mean, not to be like gay, but again, it was like this movie and Death Becomes Her.
Really?
That I would
this
watch.
was on that level for you?
It wasn't
Yes.
Death Becomes Her like height, but I watched it so much that like when you're a kid, sometimes phonetically you're just repeating the sounds and you don't even know the words, but you'll like when it's like amok, poof, like all of these little moments are so imprinted in my brain, like baba, I'm in trouble, like whatever. All of these little things. I've seen it so many times as a kid. I would watch it over and over and over again that it's just so ingrained in my brain that watching it this time, like clockwork, like something would come up and I would just say the next line and the next line would say, oh my God. Like I love this movie. It's such a huge piece of culture for me. It was my introduction to Kathleen and Jimmy, who I'm obsessed with. I think she's amazing. Thora Birch, obviously, so sick. And then Sarah Jessica Parker, Bette Midler, like I just, I can't believe what a monument this movie is to me. How about for you?
Yeah, I loved this movie growing up. And it's weird because like I think I've said like my family was like, oh, witches, none of that Hocus Pocus, right? But we did watch Hocus Pocus and I was super into it. And then like, becoming an adult and going back and like watching it because like having such fond memories of this film and such a love for the characters. Obviously the Sanderson sisters, like so iconic, so incredible, so fun. I don't know. It felt like watching this movie, like this is one of the big nostalgia movies for me.
Oh my God.
Like what a fucking moment, especially because like, my mom would watch like other Bette Midler stuff and like Beaches and all this stuff. And then so to see her and like just in all of her glory, I was like so obsessed and it was so incredible. And it was like, yeah, this one's for me, Mom. This is mine.
This is my Bette Midler moment.
Yes. I mean, truly 100%. So yeah, I was so excited when they announced the next Hocus Pocus 2 because like a lot of people like, oh, that's gonna be so bad, but like as we know on this podcast, things can be very good. Sequels 20 years later can be very good, and they had the original cast and all this. And I think even if I thought it was going to be bad, I was just excited to see the Sanderson sisters, all three of them, reprise their role.
Yeah.
And like everybody else, like Doug Jones and who I realize I've
talk
probably
about
been
a
calling
fucking
Duncan
icon.
Jones. I've been
Duncan
calling
Jones.
him Duncan Jones on the show. Oh my God, for like fucking episodes. Doug Jones is what I meant. But yeah, like I mean, yeah, what a fucking icon, right? And I'm just like, yeah.
It's pretty wild. I mean, granted, I have a lot of issues with the new one that I'm excited to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about.
But yeah, I think it is. When I heard that it was happening, I was just like, oh, they got the original cast. I mean, whether or not it's good or bad, I think it's still going to just be fun. And from a nostalgic perspective, which is, again, when we're doing the podcast, I am excited to watch it. First and foremost, because of the impact that, like how integral Hocus Pocus was to me as a kid. And again, whether it's good or bad, I'm excited that it exists.
Excited that it exists, but I have a lot of problems
Same.
with
And
a lot of problems with like thematically and also
I
the things that it changes about the story and about the lore. And I'm
thank you.
very excited
Okay.
to get into that.
I literally almost bit my tongue and spit it into the cauldron as soon as I said that. Like, I'm happy
Oh
it
my
exists,
God.
because I'm like, wait, is that true?
Am I? I don't
Am
know.
I
I
actually
need to
happy
think
this
about
exists?
this.
Who knows? Yeah. So I'm excited to get to that answer by the end of it.
Yes.
But yeah, do you wanna just jump in?
Oh my God, should we? Let's talk about Hocus Pocus.
Let's do it.
Oh.
On October 31st, 1693, in Salem, Massachusetts, the Sanderson sisters, Mary, Sarah, and Winifred, kidnapped a little girl named Emily Binks in a successful effort to restore their youth via magic, and turned her brother, Thackeray, into an immortal black cat. Immediately after, the sisters are captured and hung by the townsfolk, accused of being witches, but not before they cast a spell, ensuring their eventual resurrection. Exactly 3 centuries from the date, teenage skeptic Max reluctantly takes his sister Danny out trick-or-treating, where the pair end up at Max's crush, Allison's house. In a desperate attempt to spend more time with Allison, Max suggests they venture to the Sanderson sister house, which was converted into a museum and recently abandoned. The girls reluctantly agree, and together they break into the Sandersons' house, where Max lights the black flame candle despite the girls' wishes, thus summoning the one and only Sanderson sisters. After a bit of escape hijinks and some help from their new feline friend Thackeray Binks, the 3 kids find themselves on the run with Winifred's spellbook in hand.
Using Mary's sense of smell to track down the children, the Sanderson sisters are led all over town, forced to make sense of a world very different from the one they left in the 1600s. Eventually, they catch up with the kids, who went to their parents for help at a dance party and quickly turned Max's plea for help into a fun dance number, cursing the parents to dance eternally in the process. The kids then lead the sisters to the high school, where they lure them into a pottery kiln and are burned alive. Thinking they won, the kids go home to celebrate their victory with a hard-earned nap, and Allison decides to use the Sanderson spellbook to turn Binks back into a real boy. Unfortunately, the Sanderson sisters are very much alive and find the children's location thanks to the book being opened. The sisters descend upon the children, stealing Danny and the rest of the town's young children on the way back to their house. Max and Allison steal Danny back and form a plan with Binks and Winifred's ex-zombie lover to save Danny, which doesn't go as planned, but works out okay in the end.
Allison, kiss me, I'm Allison.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's just
First off,
so...
I absolutely love the character of Danny.
Oh, she's
Danny
amazing.
is it. She's what was it? Oh, Little Women, where we were talking about Drew Barrymore stole the show, right? Danny absolutely stole the show. She's so cool.
Kristen Dunst?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Kristen
sick.
Yeah.
I was
Kristen
like, wait,
Dunst.
Drew Barrymore was a little...
No, not Drew Barrymore. Oh my God, but also Drew Barrymore in several things as a
in
kid.
Firestarter. Yeah.
Firestarter. Oh my God, yes. So many wonderful little girl actors. Okay, anyways,
Literally. Oh
we
my
love
God.
you. Okay, anyways.
She's an icon. She's so good in this.
Is so good. She's so fun and smart, where she's like, the Sanderson sisters are like, like they come to life, and she's like, oh, I'm a witch too. Look at me. See the hat? Like, see? And like she also is like super down to take from the rich. She's like, oh, they're having this party. I'm totally gonna go steal all their fucking candy. Fuck you. She has like some super sick burns where she's just like, oh, you're the ugliest thing that's ever lived. Like, and I'm just like, oh, she's good.
Literally just the coolest. Like,
She
everything
is.
about her, she's so funny, she's so charismatic, she's so heartfelt and like earnest. Everything she does is like real. Like her, and she never, like, in the way that Max is constantly trying to, like, big air quotes, man up and be like the big brother and be like the big macho guy.
She's like, why?
She literally, because for her, like, if she's sad, she's like, I'm gonna be sad and let me just feel sad. Like, I miss home and I really wish that like things were different. And he's like, yeah, you know what, me too. And she's like, okay, well, great. What are we doing next? Because I'm done feeling that way and I'm ready to go. And
right? Whereas Max is just like being a little shit. He's like, whatever. And like literally, like, I think she did such a good job as an actor, like being that kid's sister, trying to be like, oh, Allison, like trying to like poke fun at him and be like, hey, I really want to hang out with you. Like, you need to hang out with me. I will bring mom and dad into this if I need to, but please just hang out with me, because like it's apparent, like when she tells him, like she goes to the bullies and she's like, well, my brother's here, right? It's apparent that she thinks that he is the greatest, the coolest, the strongest, that he is her rock and her protector. And she has like, he is her hero. Like, it's so apparent. And
And
Max can't see that. And
she's literally just like, I miss you. Like,
literally,
can we just
yeah.
fucking hang out? Like, what's the problem here?
Yeah. And that is one of the things like that I like about Max too, which like, surface level when we like first see him, he's just kind of a dweeb and kind of an asshole, and like, he's like literally just trying to like shut everybody down and like, oh, whatever, witches aren't real, this isn't real. And they're like, oh, you California tie-dye wearing blah 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 blah, and he's like, ooh. And he's also a creep to Allison, but I feel like and he is a creep to Allison. I do want to talk about that. But I do feel like by the end, like we do see sort of a character arc for him where he goes through and he's like, oh my God, these things are real. And then he like is trying to be that person for his sister where he's like, okay, they're after my sister. I have to protect her. He tries going to like, his parents. He tries going to the cop, but then he's like, okay, it's up to me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure she's okay and she's taken care of. And he takes responsibility. And at the end, ultimately, like he drinks the potion, which like like Max at the beginning would not have done that.
No.
And so I feel like throughout this journey and letting himself be vulnerable and like actually care about things, like that ultimately saves the day, which is really cool.
And here's my biggest like success with this movie versus the next one. We let the witches be witches, right?
Yes.
We let them be child-eating monsters. We're not doing redemption arcs. We're not doing backstories. They are monsters. They're fun and they're kooky and they're charismatic and silly and mean and like, but with the best comeback. They're all of these things. But at the end of the day, they are monsters. So for us, we don't need this like, oh, but they're people. They're not people. They're literally monsters. Like they literally eat children. Like that's, I don't know why. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But in this one, very much so, like we allow Max hitting his relationship with Danny. We watch him change. Like, again, he's sort of the hero, right? Like he is the character who goes through the most change. And we watch that happen in real time, where in the end, he is willing to sacrifice himself for the people in his life who matter the most. And at the end of the day,
doubt. Yeah.
It's Danny. And it's always been Danny. And to see her see that validation and watch them triumph over the literal monsters is like, it's like
I have goosebumps.
It's a good movie because like you're watching this happen in real time and they're closer for it, and now maybe there's new love with this girlfriend, which is cool but not necessary, but it's still cool because like he's also proving to her that like he's capable of growth, he's capable of change, and he's capable of like protection. He's a good he's a decent guy. And like, I mean, at the end when they're like palling around with fucking the zombie before they're like, oh, hey, buddy, like, I'm so happy that you like whatever. And it's just, I don't mean to say this in a way that's belittling. It's a pretty simple movie, but it's so effective for what it is. Like, it's so succinct, and I feel like does such a good job at telling a story of growth. And I mean, it's a good structure. It's a well-written movie. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a great movie. Yeah.
One of the things that I really love is, me and how men treat women in films is like, even if he's a jerk and he like learns his lesson in the end or whatever, like I'm still like, fuck you forever. And like Max is a fucking shit when we first see him. He tries to shut Allison up by giving her his number. And she's like, no, thank you. And she like immediately shuts him down. And then he like his way of flirting. And again, like this is all like patriarchal, like this is learned behavior, right? His way of flirting is like going to her and being like, oh, I'm sorry I embarrassed you in class, when he's the one that got embarrassed, right? And she's like, you didn't embarrass me. Like you're bad. You're dumb. Oh, you want my number? Here. And it's his number that she gives back to him.
It's my favorite thing.
It's so good.
Where she's like, oh yeah, come to my party. Here's my number. She leaves. It's his number. She's like, I don't fuck with you. Like, get away from me. But it's also, I loved, and I noticed this the last couple times I've seen it, there's some random actor after they're leaving the classroom where he's like, some rando is like, hey, back off. She's mine or whatever. Like, I'm after. I think it's such a wonderful addition to this because it's like showing us who the men in this world are, like the expectation for the men here. So we're giving, like, Max is no different than this man, right? In this moment, he's no different than this skis ball who's like, I own her and she's mine and get away from her because I called dibs because she's not a person, she's an object. Base level, when we're introduced to him, he's there.
Yeah.
We have a foundation and a floor to grow from so clearly. There is no nuance to it. He's a shitty dude who like just wants to fuck some girl. That's the whole deal. And we're reiterating that with this other guy who's like, hey, I'm like you, but I got here first and we're the same and we're both scumbags. And you're like, that is a good way to set it up. Ugh.
Can I say something else that I was really stoked on in this watch that I never realized? Usually in these stories, right, the damsel or the woman will see her clothing just gets torn off or like, is ripped in like this very suggestive sort of way. And in this film, they flipped that. His shirt is like, his sweatshirt is like ripped like up at the top. So it's like showing a little bit of collarbone and stuff. And it's like the women are both there, both unharmed, right? I was so stoked about that because I was like, that's really fucking cool. I never noticed that.
Well, I also love it just in general as like, this is a femme film. Like the everybody in this, with the exception of Max. I mean, granted, he is like the hero, which is fine, but everyone around him is women. Constantly,
except Thackeray, but like he's a fucking cat.
But he's a cat. He's not like.
And the other one is a zombie that's there for 2 seconds. But like he is the only man there. You're right. Yeah, and I love that.
Well, also we're talking about Thackeray Binks, or sorry, if we're talking about what's his name, Billy Butcher. If we're talking about Billy Butcher. He has his mouth sewed up like half the time, anyways. So he's not even talking because he's literally sewed shut. But yeah, I feel like it's such a well told story, and I am so happy that like Max has that room to grow. And if we're gonna objectify anybody, I'm glad it's Max because it is like
exactly.
And because also throughout the movie, a lot of the jokes are at his expense, and it's not even like, oh, he's a virgin. There's a level of like, because there are not a lot of men around to be like, oh, you're a fucking loser, you haven't fucked yet. It's a lot of these women just kind of being like, oh, okay, like,
yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like,
because there is such an emphasis placed on, like, I think the only one that's like, that does that is like the cop, which is like, oh, really a virgin, right?
But again, it's the shitty guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But everybody else is like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, that's fine. When like, as a woman in the world, like there's so much weight put on like, your virginity, right? Which like also like you can't fucking prove that, like, pop my cherry or whatever, but like that shit can pop when you're on horseback. Like, oh my God.
It's so gross and bad.
But like to know that is something that like has for centuries and continues to be something that women are persecuted violently for, right? The lack of virginity or whatever, they must be pure in order to do this. To have that be, again, trope be flipped and have that be on the man, like these, like, I think it works on so many good levels that I didn't realize as a kid watching this.
I mean, it makes the movie so much, like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm gay, maybe whatever, but it makes it so much clearer why it resonated with me so as it did. Like, it is such an outlier story for so many reasons, and largely it being a femme-centric story, like, we're getting all of these wonderful and dynamic women. I mean, granted, the cast is like exceptionally white. That's like one of the big things. It's like a white story, which is a problem in and of itself. Right. But overall, as far as movies go, the fact that it is such a femme-centric story, it just adds so much dynamic to the character work, to the plot, to everything. I want to talk about the sisters in general.
Yes, please.
Because their dynamic specifically is such an eloquent like homage to like the Three Stooges and these other sort of slapstick trios who just are so punchy and so perfect. Like Sarah Jessica Parker, who is like the ditzy blonde character, but who is so impeccably funny. Like she times everything so perfectly. Every volley, every punch, every trip, every like, you mean like what? Like every little nuance of misunderstanding, of completely missing the point is perfect. And then Kathy Najimy, who the whole time is like trying to prove herself to her sisters, like, no, I can do this, I'm good. I'm more than just this girl, I'm more than just the other weird one. Like I can be the pretty one too. You guys, like, you're both pretty, but I can be the pretty one too. Like she's doing that whole like pining and like, oh, I'm so wrong, and like let me make myself small for you because like I'm trying to please everyone. And then obviously Bet, who is like the lead, she's the pretty one. She's
Oh
the
my God.
the
Bet.
ego. She's the face. She's it. And then some of the stuff that I like in the next one that they kind of tap into a little bit.
Yeah.
But it like their dynamic is just so
perfect. It's like it is so they have so much chemistry. It is so
yeah.
perfect. They played their roles so well.
Yeah.
Like they have some of the best fucking lines. Like I feel like anytime one of them opened their mouths, it was just like a riot. I was laughing so hard. And I think that's one of the things that I loved and resonated with this as a kid, right? Just the amount of overacting that all three of them are doing. Like you said, this like slapstick, but like they're like they get burned to death in the kiln and then they come out speaking French. And I was like, that's so funny. They go to high school and they're like, oh, this is a children prison. Like them
a prison for children. It like
yes,
there's so much wonderful stuff. Like
them learning to interact with the world, thinking that like them getting on the bus or going into the kitchen and thinking it's a torture chamber. Like they're blessed by the angel child, and they're like the brooms when
the
they
vacuum.
come out with the vacuum. Oh my God. And I'm excited for the next one and what they do.
It's a big positive. It's just Kathy and Jimmy on that. Oh my God, it's just so good. Again, like
seeing the devil and being like, master. Oh
master.
My goodness. Like
it's so good.
It's incredible. Even like on every level, it's good. But like just it's fun to even just turn off your brain and just watch because those three are so funny and so good in this role.
They're so charming. And like truly every little aside, oh, it's the black rain of death. Like, 'tis but water. And then they go and touch it and she's like, revenging. Like these little moments. And then it's like when they push Sarah Jessica Parker into the road and she's like, ah! And she jumps up and down. She's like, 'tis firm. It's a road. Like everything about their dynamic in this movie. And I'm trying my best not to be like full nostalgia fuel. Like,
oh yeah, I have notes, but I want to talk about our nostalgia and what works before I dig into some of this.
Exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
So I'm trying my best not to be like full, just like it's like blah blah blah. But even watching it now, and I mean, again, I've watched it so many times, but even watching
the
it
music
like
number
yesterday when
that
I
they
sat
do,
down to watch
like
it.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. So before we get into the sisters, because I do have like some comments on and some ideas that I want to like kind of talk about with them. I want to talk about how the men react to them. And I think, we've already talked about like the devil's just kind of like, oh, come in. Hey, honey. And his wife is literally in the next room. And he's like, they're objectified by literally every man that they meet, right? Just for being women or just for being, just for, I don't know, existing, like Sarah with like, jumping up and down on like the bus driver's like lap, right? And like one of the things I love about her character is she's just so she's so overly sexual, but she like never gives them the time of day. She always maintains the power in every interaction she has. But yeah, like the devil, the bus driver, the fake cop, like they're all just like objectified by them. And I think that's like a really cool commentary. And I also think that I like that they didn't, at least it doesn't feel like the same way that the witches did, where like this is like an anti-Semitic witch portrayal, right?
Yes.
Which is incredibly important to me. And like you said, they're monsters, right? They are absolute fucking monsters, to the point to where each one of them really inhabits like the 7 deadly sins or whatever, right? Where like Sarah is lust, and that's like her thing. Winnie is pride and greed, right? Mary is unfortunately, because she's the larger one, which is
because she's the fat girl. She's the fat girl, so she's gluttony,
right? And
that is one of the most annoying parts.
Her superpower is literally being able to smell children, and then like every point that we can, we're kind of punching down on this, and to the point to where the characters are even punching down on her. She like Winnie is upset, and Mary looks at Winnie and says like, do you want to hit me? That usually makes you feel better. And she's fine with that because she wants her sister to be happy. So I really have I love Mary, but I really have a problem with the way that this character was written because she's
Yeah.
so much cooler and so
And
fucking funny.
And that's the most frustrating part too, is because there are the jokes in there that recognize that like they are literally punching down on these girls left and right. And for her, it has everything to do with the fact that she is the fat one, right? And
Yes.
she's the fat one. She's the one who like wants to eat and smells kids and mm-mm-mm. So the fact that there's already a joke in there where she's like, "Oh yeah, hit me. That makes you feel better. Like punch down on me. Like do it." I'm like, come on. Like, I mean, granted, they do it so frequently. I'm so happy that it never becomes like so overt. It's still casual enough to be like quote unquote hidden as like a character trait. Obviously
But it's
it
still
is overt.
fat-phobic, and it's still
still
like teaching
fat-phobic.
kids that like,
Yeah.
larger women don't have self-esteem, and that's fine, And she's the first one to be like, "Hey, we're getting a little bit worked up. Let's form a calming circle." She's bringing her sisters into this like this space where she is able to recenter herself because she deals with so much shit, right? But yeah, I like that is one of my biggest problems with this movie because I feel like again that character is and can be so cool, but like almost every time that we see her on the screen, it's the butt of a joke, and it is literally because she's fat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and that sucks.
It really does suck. And to the point also with the way that men in general in the story see them, right? I wish there was more of an and they do it a little bit more in the next one, but I wish there was more of an overtness to the disdain they feel for these men. Obviously there's a manipulation
Yes.
aspect going on. Like with the bus driver, there's a level of like, we're just using him to get what we need. But it's not clear enough to me, at least for me, just because it does really feel like, ooh, like who's this man? And he's gonna like whatever, and I'm gonna sit on his lap, and I'm gonna bounce, and I'm gonna fucking whatever.
Well, and Sarah's character is very much like, oh my god, look at boy, like she has like a line just like that. Oh, they'll love me, I'm beautiful, right? She is literally dripping this, and like she wants that and wants that kind of attention, and it almost feels like a reward for these men. Like it isn't like as clear, like you said, that they're like, they are objectified, but it isn't clear that that is bad and wrong, right?
Yes. There isn't a delineation between that. I mean, the only way that we can connect those two dots is the fact that like they're villains. They're bad people. But because of the gaze of which we're viewing these characters, they're still objects, despite their power, despite this thing, in the eyes of these other men, they're still objects, whether good or bad, for sexual desire of men. And
Yeah.
it's annoying at best. And there is so much like integrity in this movie. And I'm so mad that like in these moments where I feel like it counts, like it's just like, oh, we're just not gonna, like, who cares? Like, let him be that. And it's like, just let's say something. Like, you already have these other strong characters. Like, Danny, I mean, she's the youngest, but she is so just like, you're not gonna treat me bad just because I'm a girl.
She's the strongest.
Like,
She's the
fuck
one that,
you.
yeah.
And we already have these characters within it, like, especially for like these all powerful witches. They have the power to like how cool would it have been? And I know it's a Disney movie and I know it's a kids movie, but whatever. What if like we just get these shots after they're being objectified, like they get off the bus and the bus isn't moving and suddenly like the driver isn't there.
Yeah, something, right?
He's gone. And you're like, oh, they ate him. Like they literally ate him because he was this bad guy. And then just like, we're moving on, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
Like,
we're not showing anything crazy. We're having a good time. And we're recognizing that like these men are paying for what they've done in these spaces. Like they're gonna play along to get the thing that they want, and the thing that they want is food, and they're gonna eat him. You know what I mean?
And I think that would have been more compelling too, because
Yeah.
it's less good versus bad, where like, the next one tried to add a lot of nuance in places that it didn't need to, and I'm excited to talk about that. But in this one, right, it's just like, ooh, children, right? Like, so Sarah, her whole thing, right, is that she seduces people. She does that to children too, right? Where like she, sings about like, like, hey, come follow me. And it's like the loss of innocence, right? Like with her character and with the emphasis placed on needing a virgin to light the candle, it's because how can I phrase this? Because they need a virgin to light the candle, it's absolutely important. They are absolutely preying on innocence, right? And that's what they are, that's where they're at. And I think that's probably why they didn't have like them eat the bus drivers or anything. But I do think that that would have been more compelling because then it would have been just like they're just bad instead of they're fucking evil. You know what I mean? And
And that's I think that would be so much, that would be so cool because it would reinstill like they're literal monsters. Like not only are they preying on children to eat and steal their soul for youth, but they're literally just killing people because they can and they
mhm.
want to. And I think that would,
I think that would have
yeah.
been cooler. And I do think because
And it would
um
have literally been them being man eaters. Like you play on the
yeah.
stereotype of the man eater and like that sort of type, that trope of a woman, that trope of a femme character. Use it to your advantage and make it a more empowered instead of like this bad thing. It's like, yes, it's a bad thing, but they're bad people, and that's why. And suddenly it's like you've switched the table a little bit, and suddenly man eater becomes this like cool thing that's more femme powered than it is male gazy. And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes to my point where first of all, I want to say all of the women in this movie are fucking strong as hell. There is not one like even the mom who we see just for like, a few scenes. They are all so strong, so empowered, have their own opinions, are not going to like just fall at the whim of any dude. Allison, the love interest included, which is great. And I think it's so rare that we get a film that is so female centric, so accessible to men where like literally every other man except for Max looks like a fool, like the fucking bullies and stuff like that. Like I love that. But in this idea that these three women are like they're single, they are, they have powers, they are strong, right? They're trying to survive as bad as it is to like kill children. I'm not endorsing that by any means, but like these are literal empowered women that like don't need men. And the fact that the townsfolk like, hang them and that they have this kind of arc to me, like I feel like I wanted a little bit more nuance, not what we got in the next one. You know what I mean? Because like it just does kind of feel like everybody, I mean, even Danny partners up with fucking Thackeray, which I'm like, really? Like a fucking ghost? Like we have to like reinstill that. But the three single women who are actually like super empowered that can do whatever they want, like they're vilified because like we have to make sure that okay, they're eating children, they're stealing children's souls. Okay, great. And that's why they're not just going to steal any random man's soul. It has to be children. We have to make sure that we know that this is bad and that
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? So like some of those regressive things like when
Yeah.
thinking about
Which
witches.
yeah, it goes back to just witch lore and the misogyny within the idea of witchcraft and what it means
Yeah.
and like where it comes from and what spurned all of these sort of scary tropes when it comes to witches and witchcraft. And it's all based in men hating women, just straight misogyny, base level, nothing else. And so, granted, when we're talking about a story with witches, a lot of that sewage is going to spew up no matter how cutesy or fun or what have you. I think
Yeah.
I agree. Like, granted, what I want, at least within this, and this is perfect because we kind of get that in the next one. What I want a much more like nuanced, where like everyone's a person. Let's go into like whatever. Not really, because with them, especially like, yes, it does suck that we're vilifying them for these bad things, but it really like they're so like I think they're still so cool. Like in
Yeah.
the story, we're not like, oh, they suck and they're bad, and it's because they're like, yes, they're bad because they're literal monsters. They're not even people anymore. They are just
Mhm.
monsters. But the whole time, the whole movie, outside of all the slapstick stuff, they're still really cool and so
Mhm.
like adaptive and what is it when you bounce back from something quickly? Like,
I mean, just that you bounce
yeah,
back.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
They're so like everything goes wrong. Like they're literally being killed at every turn. The sun's about to come up, and they're so just like, okay, what's next? Like, I mean, granted, to be fair, the one who is so okay, what's next is Kathy and
Whitney.
Jimmy,
Oh,
because
no,
the other
yeah. Sorry.
because the other two are like one of them is like, oh my god, I'm dying, and the other one's
Oh
like,
my
oh no,
God.
we're dying and
Bette
we're young and
Midler
blah.
just being like, oh, like,
Yeah.
she fucking killed that scene. It's
Which is
so
like,
good.
goodbye, cruel world.
This
And
is
she's
it.
like, bye,
Goodbye.
bye, bye, cruel world, bye, 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 bye,
Goodbye, boo.
and she's just like, Kathy and Jimmy's like walking her to the window, like, oh, take me to the bed. And she's like, oh, goodbye.
And
You
she's
say
like
bye.
just mimicking her too. So like she's like, goodbye, book, goodbye,
Bye,
bye, book.
It's
Bye,
so,
bye.
it's so fun. Like they're bad and they're witches and like we're supposed to not like them, but they're so charismatic. And there's there's never a moment where I'm like, I mean, granted, I hope our heroes win. I hope that they don't die, but there's never a point where I think
gone forever.
yeah, there's never a point where I think that the witches are gonna win, which is what makes the ride kind of so much fun because like you're just getting to see pure charisma in all of its forms, like unambiguous, just talent. And I mean, if this movie had more nuance and there were more conversations, I wish that there was a little bit more of a conversation again with the objectification. But outside of that, like, I do think for what this movie is, it's not necessary. It's just like, yeah, I don't know, because I don't want to give it the pass of like, well, it's not a social commentary, because I think all media is social commentary. I think all cinema is social commentary. But that is the only one that like there are literal moments in the movie that like are carved out for like there's spots where like that's where you say this and that's where you show this. Like it's already built into the story and they just chose not to like add it. You know what I mean?
Like there's one of the things that I also think could have been done in a way that would not have been gross, but I think that we get just a little bit of the subtext here, more so in the next one. But we know Winnie, we know that she was rejected by the love of her life. So she's like, she killed him and poisoned him. And even though it was her sister that like, he was with, and her sister tries to say like, no, he actually was mine. He liked me. And she's like, no, I can't even hear it. Right.
Yeah.
She killed him. So like, and then there's also the line where she says like, I always wanted a child. Now I'll have one on toast. Right. But like, kind of like furthering, she wanted a husband and like she wanted a kid, and because she didn't get the ones that she wanted, or she took away her sister's joy, and her sister's like kind of like she's ruling their life, you know what I mean? Because Winnie's nothing without her sisters or her book, which we see in the next one. But like I do think that there's something interesting there, but again, we're not going to get that here.
Yeah, it's I wish there was a little bit more.
She does forever punishments, which is incredible.
Yeah.
You're going to live with your guilt forever.
It's
Zachary,
so good.
Or Thackeray.
Twist the bones and bend the back.
Oh my gosh, those were so fun.
Rid
like
him of his baby fat. It's so good.
All of the potions, all of the things, like every time, the way that they walk, the zoom, 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 zoom.
It's just, and even like Billy being like, "Go to hell. I've been there, thank you. I find it quite lovely." Like,
yeah,
it's just, and I will say, I do remember when Billy first cuts his mouth open. I could have swore the first thing he says is "you bitch."
I think you're right, and I think Disney edited it out.
Did they change it? Because like I remember being like,
I'm gonna
like oh my god, like not like because I think in this version it's either witch or wench.
But it might be wench.
It could be wench. I'm almost certain that as a kid he was like, "You bitch," and she was like, "Oh."
Okay, apparently there's whole like Reddit threads about this because people are like, "Oh my god, I totally remember this."
Because every time I watch it, I'm like, he said bitch. Like what? I could have swore. It just made it so much more impactful because it was like, especially for a kids movie, like, oh my god, a bad word. Like, it's so clear, unambiguous. He's saying the word. Fuck. Like, whoa.
In an interview with Collider, he says, The original script wanted me to yell bitch at her, which was funny, but by the same token, I was thinking this is a Disney Kids film. I really want to let the kids know that I'm on their side and not on the witch's side. I wouldn't want to roil up that emotion from 300 years of sitting on it and yeah, and be more family friendly. So that was okay.
That's cool.
I can
Yeah,
I
well,
can s- I can
because
dig that.
then maybe it's just where like the impression of the impact of like the word,
Yeah, the
because it's so
impact was like, you
close.
bitch. And I was
And
like,
you're like,
oh,
yeah,
he really just went
like
there.
he
Yeah.
said it. Oh my god, it just yeah. This is a movie that I will always hold dear. I the other day, and I know this is always going to happen just when it comes to like nostalgia and the way that we sort of hold dear memories of the past. I saw a couple people tweeting because Hocus Pocus 2 just came out. We're on the cusp.
Yeah.
We're on the
Look at
pulse of
us.
culture.
Woohoo.
But a couple people who I saw on Twitter posted something like, "Oh, I'm watching Hocus Pocus for the first time, and people really love this." Eek.
Yeah,
And
wasn't Amber? Didn't Amber say that too?
did she say that?
I think she said like I don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like, to me, I'm assuming it's just nostalgia lens of
Yeah.
like, how can you not love these performances? Like, how, even outside of like it being just like glorified decom, like that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a glorified decom. There's nothing to it outside of that. It is get in, get out, having changed, bada boom, got the girl, is a cool brother now, slay, happy Halloween. Cool. But in that story with these actors, how can you not
How
like
can you
just
not?
eat these performances up? They're so fucking funny. Like Sarah Jessica Parker just like going and climbing on a gate and like swinging in the background when they're trying to have a conversation is just a nonsense. They're just these goofy goobers. I love it. I love them.
Yeah,
They're so good. Yeah.
they are good. Should we do the next one?
Let's do the next one. Yeah.
Before the Sanderson sisters were all powerful witches, they were three orphaned little girls about to be married off against their will by Salem's Reverend. When they refused, the girls were banished from the city and forced to find shelter in the Forbidden Forest, where they met Mother Witch, who gifted Winifred her spellbook, setting them on their path of witchhood. Flash forward to Halloween 2022, we meet friends Becca and Izzy preparing for Becca's 16th birthday ritual and have an awkward run in with their estranged friend Cassie and her jock boyfriend. Becca and Cassie go to the Sanderson sister house, which was converted into a magic shop by Gilbert the Great, Sanderson sister mega fan, who gives Becca a special candle to light for her ritual. The pair of friends head off to the Forbidden Forest and light the candle Gilbert gave them, only to realize it's actually a new black flame candle like the one from the first movie. Gasp.
The Sanderson sisters appear ready for another chance at immortality and immediately confront the girls, who convince the sisters Walgreens is a magic shop that contains the exact potions they need. Skincare. After realizing the truth, Winifred decides to perform the Magicae Maxima spell, the one the Mother Witch made her promise never to do, which sends her on a quest to kill Cassie's dad, who happens to be a descendant of the Reverend from their childhood. The sisters head to a Sanderson sister cosplay contest, and hijinks ensue. Becca, Cassie, and Izzy make up. The girls trap the sisters escape. Becca develops magic powers. Book chooses Becca over Winifred. Gilbert gets Winifred's spell ingredients. Winifred casts Magicae Maxima. Her sisters vanish and she is left all powerful yet alone. Winnie cries, the girls kill her, but it's like mutual. The girls are stoked to be a real coven and everyone feels great.
Okay, that was a lot at the end. There was like a lot of points. Yeah. So this film is a film that was made, and I'm going to say that it was made purely for the fact that in 2020, when no new movies were coming out, Hocus Pocus came back into theaters, and it was the number one film in the box office again after so many years because people were so excited and also so terrified, and everybody went to drive-ins or whatever. But this movie became number one at the box office in 2020, or the first one. So oh my God, we should Disney was probably like, oh my God, should we do this? We should totally do this. Oh my God, are you in? Are you girls in? And then they were like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, fans, are you in? And we're like, fuck yeah, we're in.
Yeah.
And that's why this exists.
This movie is the quintessential for our show. It is the nostalgia bait of nostalgia baits when it comes to the reason it exists. I want to talk about some good stuff first before we get into the bulk of everything else.
Before we just trash this movie.
Yeah, I feel like it's just going to happen, unfortunately. But some of the jokes, the way that they were like upped for the modern day, I thought were fantastic. Like the fact that when they first show up, they're singing. Initially, I was like, oh no, like we're going to get a musical number. But as soon as the girls are running away and they're like, wait, who are they even performing for? And she turns and it's Sarah Jessica Parker being like, you. And then it's like, oh my God, they're scary again. I was like, that is genius. And oh, I'm obsessed with that. It's such a good choice.
Yes.
Fuck.
The brooms can like
the Roomba?
So
the Roomba?
So it was a Swiffer and two Roombas that she called broomies, and then they later on were part of the reason that they got like out of like that salt circle. I was obsessed. I thought that was so good and
it's so funny.
Smart.
It's so chill, so silly, so funny. The Walgreens situation, apart from the product placement of Walgreens, like them walking in with the automatic doors, what a funny bit. Where it's like, oh my God, the door's open for them. And then when they finally go in and Kathy and Jimmy's character is last, she's so stressed that she farts. Like on her way in, she's like, like I don't. And it's such a simple thing, but it's so funny. And the whole time too, it's like the commentary on like the makeup industry and like the way that they're literally just eating it, and it's like, it'll make you young forever. Literally
they
eating
see themselves in the Instagram filter or whatever and think that it worked. They're like, oh, look, it worked. This is wonderful, right?
Also, such a funny thing. Like, they see the filter and they're like, oh, look how young we look. This is amazing. Like, very good. Great points of, like, upping the humor. I mean, another one, the joke when Bette Midler is like, okay, let's spread out. And Sarah Jessica Parker just, like, spreads her whole body.
Because
like,
Alexa, and then the Alexa moment there.
And the Alexa moment. Like,
yes.
It's the exact jokes that I would expect, and it's the exact jokes that, like, showed up. Now, as a whole, they're done a disservice because the content of the movie structurally is, like, it is as nutritious as candy to land on a Halloween trope. It's not good. It's not good, and I wish it was better. Like, so first and foremost, we open with a backstory of what is it, 1622 or something like that. And so we're getting a backstory. I love the kids. I thought they were very funny. The prosthetic teeth were amazing. I love the shit with Billy Butcher we get outside of the house of like, I'm falling in love with him. It's like, me? Like, I don't know you. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, Billy Butcherson, you're going to be my whatever. And he's like, fucking what? What are you talking about? And like, we're getting the back end context for like their relationship, and that's fun. And I like that. But ultimately, the biggest thing for me structurally is like, why are we giving context to an inhuman character? Like, they're monsters. They're literally... Like, we don't have to be like, oh, but what about, like, where they came from? It's like, yes, sure. I think there's something to be said about, like, understanding a character more intently. But why the first one works so well is because they're treated as monsters. They're just monsters. Like, have some humanity in the new characters, which they do. They do a pretty good job at. But you can't just have all of this fluff of, like, oh, and I'm, like, actualizing my personhood, whatever. Like, because at that point it's just a seminar. Because then, like, where is it? There's no real conflict. Like, and then what? I don't know. I feel like it loses its thread several times trying to be like, but they're people, and I'm like, let them be monsters. Like,
Well,
We
and
love them
that's
as monsters.
like this is a time where they're trying to punch up the story and trying to make it feminist because, of like what we were talking about with like, a lot of the tropes of witches like historically and, and things like that. So like I get why they wanted to do that, but also this is another instance, and I think that we've talked about a lot of them where they were trying to punch it up or make it quote unquote woke or feminist without really understanding what that means and what that means to these characters. So I didn't
Oh,
understand why we're trying to humanize them, like you. Like, I mean, sure, context is everything, but also, like, I didn't know if we're supposed to hate them or if we're supposed to like them. A lot of that really undid the first part of the story. One of my really big things was that, the book is supposed to be evil. So, like, in the first one, they're like given by the devil. And now there's this mother witch that's like, that actually like kind of took them under their wing and gave them the book. But the book is sentient and doesn't want to be evil or with Winifred. So, but I also never thought that there was anything good that can come from this book. So at the end, when Cassie or when Becca gets the book, it's like, she's like, oh, book chose me. And it's like, okay, great. But are you going to steal children's souls? Like, what are you going to do with this book? What
literally.
contents in this book can be redeeming? I don't think there's anything. And like, then having like the climax of the movie being like Winnie, like getting all of this power, right? And then, oh my gosh, it cost me my sisters, where like, I thought it was really cute when they all got powers. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love
Oh,
this.
that
And
was
because
amazing. That was
because
so
then we see
funny.
the power dynamic shift, right? And we see them kind of challenging her, which we'll get into a little bit. But like having her have this change of heart where it's like, I lost my book, I lost my sisters, just bring them back. And then the girls straight up kill her, right? And she's like, oh my God, thank you. Like to me, like a lot of that, and it's like, oh, but it's family and all of this. I feel like it was just done so messy and not in like a good, complicated, messy way that's difficult to talk about, but in like a very surface level, very Disney kind of way where
Yeah,
again, we're not adding nuance, we're adding noise. And why are we adding this when this adds nothing to the story and diminishes everything about the first one?
exactly. It's this nutritionless, like, subplot that is so unnecessary. And again, to your point, what does this mean for our new witches? Like, are they now gonna go kill children? Like, it's not a passing of a femme torch. It's literally like they're witches who eat kids. Like,
Hmm.
I think it's cool that we have these other witches who are more ceremoniously communal and more about the empowerment of one another. But that's different than the witches we're familiar with. They're completely different ends of this spectrum of witchcraft. Why are we now trying to equate the two and say, like, the book chose me and what, like, this book is bad. This is bad. I don't care that the book cried. Like, that was so stupid and funny, but like, I don't care about it.
But
This
like
book is
when has it
bad.
ever been good? What good has come from it? We've seen nothing, right?
Literally.
It's that book has also been complicit in the murdering of so many children, right?
So
And
now
like
why suddenly, yeah,
so
it's
many
like,
unspeakable other things because that book has so many other spells, right? So like again, what good can come from this book? I don't know. So like cheering for our girls at the end, like I I was like, so why? Like it doesn't make sense. And so now we have another coven that has the same kind of power dynamic where only one of them has powers and the other two are just sidekicks. And I also don't love that. If we're sharing power, like I don't know, it felt it didn't know what it was saying.
it didn't know what it was saying at all. Like, I mean, granted, I liked the Sam Richardson character. I mean, largely because he's really cute and I have a big crush on him. But secondarily, because he was sort of the nostalgia surrogate, right? Like, he was the fanboy for the sisters. He was obsessed with them.
Hmm.
Um, he like witnessed everything that happened in '93 when he was trick or treating. That was like an interesting tie, not necessary, but
Hmm.
interesting. Um, but his thread also got lost somewhere along the way, where he
Also,
suddenly is just now Billy Butcher the sidekick, which is like fine, but this is not even a story anymore. This like has nothing to do with this now.
and how could this be good? Like, how can we, like, his character is presented as this kind of like fanboy, which I do like because I feel like on a surface level, like, it doesn't really work, but when you dig into it, like, blind fandom is bad,
Yeah,
when it's
yeah,
like, oh, like you're like clearly, in him talking about the Sanderson sisters and their story, like he, was like, oh, well, sure, they murdered all these children, but they were like so misunderstood because like somebody was mean to them once, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so like trying to ascribe and project like his own feelings and his own like thoughts on them onto, right? And so I do feel like his character is like fandom is bad, and I feel like a lot of the Sanderson sisters, like, literally at every turn, it's like, oh my God, are you them? Like, you guys look so good, right? Like, it's like they're this kind of celebrity that they weren't back in the first movie, which was also a little bit off-putting. But Gilbert as a whole, his whole function is he like hangs out with Book, figures out how to make a new black flame candle, and gives it to his best customers who we see some sort of like friendship, right? And never once like I mean like there's like maybe a mention of like, why did you do this? And he's like, oh well, you're virgins, like, and like, so like that's also predatory and shitty and assuming, and like his whole character I really didn't like. And one of my big things is he was supposedly cursed, right? The girls and he like was giving away the anti-curse like drug, right? Where he's like, oh yeah, have this. And it worked for the girls. They were able to lift the curse and get out of the thing. Why didn't he think to use his anti-curse medicine? Why? He owns a fucking magic shop. He's supposed to know this so much better than anybody else.
Well,
like
I mean, okay, so this movie unfortunately does reek of too quick. Like, you develop this way too fast.
Yeah.
Because then also, there's so many unanswered questions with this character. But what about the Tony Hale character, who is a descendant of the town
Yes.
mayor from so and so? Suddenly, we're like, oh, okay, we're gonna get more of a thing with him, and like, oh, is the turn? And they set it up like, oh, he's playing this nice guy. He's not a descendant. We're going to find out later that he's been alive this whole time. And he is actually now a 375-year-old warlock or something, to be like, oh, you thought you were whatever back then? I'm the big monster, and I'm the bad guy, and I'm the representation of patriarchy, and why, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, here we go. This is going to be great. You're setting it up for him to be this guy.
Cool.
And then we get left with him anxiety panic attack over a candy apple, and then we never hear from him again.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Like, you were setting him up as like huge plot device. He's in the introduction, he's here, he's running for mayor, he is the father of one of the girls, and the witches notice him and they're like, oh, it's that guy. Like, what happened? What happened to this guy? Like,
yes. And the girls have to be like, oh my God, he's so nice. Like, they have to say that, like, so that way we as the audience need to know how to feel about him. And I was feeling very icky vibes, and we don't talk about this, where his family murdered women. Like, he is responsible directly for the murdering, like, of these, like, of so many women, of so many, like, quote unquote witches, right? And now he's here co-opting their holiday and doing it in this big up, like, and it's celebrated, and that's so cool. And so there's no reckoning with like how shitty and capitalist that is, how like he's profiting off of like the very people that his family like killed and oppressed, right?
And
like
that's
not a conversation.
It makes me so mad because it felt like they're setting it up for that. And I was like, cool. He's the bad guy. He's insidious because he's also playing this like overly nice, overly considerate guy. And I'm like, oh, duh. That's exactly who this is going to be. And then we just let it go and end with like, oh, I miss my sisters. Like, make him bad. And then like, how cool would, like, oh my God, talk about punch ups.
Make him be like surface level good and then like underneath bad or something. I mean, we already know that Cassie sucks. Like, she left her best friends to go hang out with some jock dude who, like, I did appreciate the fact that like they called him out and were like, hey, dude, pointing out people's differences isn't making conversation. It's actually really harmful. And he's like, oh shit. And then he has like this kind of like moment where he's like, I have so many people to apologize to. Holy shit. And he's having like his moment. And I thought that was cute. I thought that was fine.
Yeah.
But Cassie sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I wish it was a little bit more defined, because it's one of those situations where like, we're supposed to not like her because she's like has a boyfriend now and she's like kind of like moving in that direction.
Yeah.
But there is also a level of like, I wish she wasn't vilified for it. The way the story vilifies her.
Yeah.
Just because like I didn't really I also didn't care enough. Like I'm trying to think of being like, oh, you know, like I just didn't really care enough about that interaction or that drama because to me I'm just like
I didn't really care about any of the protagonists, like the three girls.
Not
I couldn't care
really.
less. Like I have almost no notes for Izzy. I have like one where she's the one that is trying to bring them all back together, right? She's that person in the group. And then for even like the protagonist, like the only thing I have is in relation to how she treats Cassie for having a boyfriend, which is stupid. Like, and it's like these girls like don't know how to talk to each other.
No.
And I feel like it's just a really regressive version of what girlfriends are and can be when we're trying to be like witches are hot right now, right? And like, you know, so it's like, oh my god, girl, we're gonna celebrate like, you know, the winter solstice and like we have our own little coven, he, right? Like I mean, and cool, like I know friends that, you know, like are into that and like great, I love that for you. But like in this like we're like supposed to be rooting for these three girls that, you know, are a little bit estranged, but all of that. And like I feel like it doesn't even do their covenness or their witchiness justice. It's just kind of like, oh well, we don't really believe in this stuff, but we're gonna go light a candle because that's what we do, right? Like
Yeah.
it felt very much like, oh, witches are hot right now and all the little girls want to be witches, so let's do this.
It missed the mark so many times. And because like the more I'm thinking about it, the more I have like more like cooler ideas. Like it's like what if this guy was like the warlock bad guy? Like oh suddenly they're banding together, and these new girls, these young witches, don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to communicate. What if there was a moment where like the Sanderson sisters are fighting this guy, and you watch quietly and in real time, Winifred, we watch Bette Midler in real time, like opening up to her sisters mid-fight, right? Like, or she saves her sister or something on impulse, and it's like, wait, she wouldn't do that. Holy shit! Like, she doesn't give a shit about her sisters. They're bad girls. They're bad witches. Like, whoa! And then instead of being like, we're heartfelt good people now, it's like, don't tell anybody I did that because I'm bad. And you're not supposed to see this. And so then there's a level of like these younger girls are watching these bad witches being like, well, they're bad and they eat children, but there's still a level of love and trust that they have. We're not going to be like them, but there is a sense of this like community and a family here that we can learn from. Ultimately, they're going to get killed and they're going to go away forever again.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to show the exact same thing without it being like, oh no, I miss my sisters. Like I it was so bad. Like it was so weird and bad.
It was a bad choice for Winnie, especially where it's like we just see her be such like a terror and just like fuck up everybody that she comes into contact with, and just to have her like I get that beating up on her sister, she's nothing if she can't have her sisters around, but we didn't do a good job of showing that transition or showing that care or that love or anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we haven't.
I wanted the sisters. I loved when they started like kind of like telling her no. I loved that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. So they're going to destroy themselves. That would have been cool. I would have been into that, where it's like, you've beat up on me for so long, you know, because both of them do it. And I was so here for that.
Literally another good avenue to take. Like, you're already setting it up, especially like you were saying, the scene where the other girls get powers, like, and suddenly it's like finger guns. I have the power now. And they're like, at their sister, like, yeah. Oh my god, now it's me. Now I'm the one in control. I'm the captain now. And bang, 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 bang. Perfect time to help develop that. It's like, actually, we're not going to do what you say.
Yeah.
Anymore. Like, why would we? We've done this for 600 years. Like, you are mean and you're a witch and you're nasty and I'm done. Blah, 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 blah. And then like big whatever. And then they run away and they're divided. And now it's like, oh my God, are the Sanderson sisters going to like get back together? Like that's part of the drama and they have to solve their own problems. And it's, again, then these young girls will see like, oh fuck, like we can't be like them. There's no way we can be like them. Like so
Yeah.
dysfunctional. That's so bad. Jess, there are so many moments where this really could have just like worked well in what they were trying to say. And it just feels like such a rush job because
Yeah.
it's like the first one's great. Like the first one's so succinct and clear and like, it's just it's a clean story just from start to finish. It knows what it's saying. It knows how to get to the end. Like that's
Mhm.
great, cool. And this one is just so like messy, and then like it just misses its own points, and
Well,
I don't
and
know.
it also like it negates a lot of the points that were and the lore that was established in the first one, you know?
Yeah.
And then they did you see the after credit scene? There was an
Oh, where they
after
do the
credit
song in the
scene.
studio?
There was
No,
another one.
no, I didn't see it.
It's the which okay, another fucking thing. Why wasn't Thackeray around? Why did he die if like, they were still able to be alive? Because like Billy was there, right? Like he's like, I've been awake for 29 years, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why did Thackeray die? That doesn't make sense. Um, but at the very end, after the credits, they were back at the magic shop, and there's that little black cat that's not Thackeray, just kind of hanging out. And he's like doing cat stuff, and then like pan over, and there's Black Flame Candle number 2. Oh my gosh. So they could come
Oh.
back actually.
Huh.
Wow.
I mean, I really like if this is the treatment of the sequel, we don't need another. Like
No.
unless you came
Unless
in
you write it, Eric,
I
then
could. I
I want
would.
nothing to do with it.
There's just so much about it that like I didn't care for. I mean, I liked the Joan Jett instead of the what's his name? Not Otis Redding. What is his name?
Oh,
Scream
yeah,
Jay
yeah.
Hawkins. Like, cool. We're doing some classic songs, and one way or another, I'm gonna get you like sick into it. Slay, so cool. Shout out to the drag queens who were in this one. I mean, Kimora
Yeah.
Hall, Cornbread the Snack, and Ginger Minge, who were the drag Sanderson sisters. Happy for them. I think that's really cool. Like,
They looked
yeah,
great too.
be in a major motion picture. Like, why not? Go for it. But it is this. It was bad, and this is exactly the kind of thing that we talk. Like, this movie only exists for nostalgic purposes. There's no reason for there to be a Hocus Pocus 2. Granted, if it was going to come back and be good, that's great, but it fell into the nostalgia trap of many sequels, remakes, and retellings before it, where they really have no fucking idea how to make this happen outside of the context of sales and knowing it's just going to do well because of the namesake. Like, I am chalking this up to like time.
Okay.
Because again, a lot of the ideas work well. A lot of the jokes work well. So there's intent there. There's setup. There's stuff happening, but then it just like goes. I really feel like they ran out of time or rewrites or something because this reeks of that. It reeks of like muddied mess.
So many things were the wrong choice.
Yeah.
We
are back
from Hocus Pocusing all around.
Yeah, we've heard the call, and we are
Quick.
the children.
What's your broom that you get?
Oh, what would it be? A mic stand? I don't know. This mic stand that I'm holding.
But it has to be like a cleaning product.
Oh, okay. Like one of those like to get the cobwebs.
Oh, Swiffer? You do a Swiffer?
Like a big Swiffer, like the long one for the corners.
Yeah.
What would yours be?
I mean, it would probably be the Roombas. I mean, that was just
they're
really
so cute.
cute.
They're
like,
so fun.
It was one of my favorite parts about it. And the fact that they were such a good plot device too. For it's like, wow, really, how are they going to get out of here? Oh my gosh, so funny.
And here they come, like,
Yeah.
suck up the salt. Gee, it's great. Again,
And they're just
so
like,
many,
yes, yes, like cheering them on.
there's so many fun elements. Ugh,
So
God.
goofy. Okay. Anyways, Eric Lefebvre, who was the original Hocus Pocus for?
The original Hocus Pocus is for young gay people. Young gays is what I want to say. Femme-centric story, Bette Midler lead, SJP adjacent, Kathy Najimy, Thora Birch, like slam dunk. Slam dunk. It's a slam dunk for the gays. 100%. Who do you think it was for?
I think it was for the women.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so rare that we have like a show that's like for the gays and for the ladies. Yeah, no, it was for us because it's like there's so many. There's not a weak woman in this. Like every one of them is just like such a strong person. Like it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgiana.
Did you like it?
I love it. I still stand by it. It's such a good movie. So quotable, so wonderful. It'll forever exist in my heart as such a like a staple of my youth. So yeah, I'm obsessed with it. I still love it. Did you like it?
Oh my God, yes. It's same. It will always be there. It will always be one of my favorites. I think I even like it more talking about it, which like, I mean, us talking about things always like does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it even more. I will watch it every Halloween
Same.
And it's so great. I love that movie.
It's such a good movie. Yeah. I'm obsessed with it.
Now Hocus Pocus 2 remake.
The sequel.
Still hocus and pocusing. Hocusy Pocus? I don't know.
Yeah, I was
There's something there.
Hocus Pocus 2 witchcraft
Put a spell on
voodoo,
you.
I don't know. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Okay. Was this new, interesting, or the same, progressive or regressive? What are you feeling about this one?
I think the only new and interesting elements of this were some of the jokes. Again, the way they punched up with the times, the conversation around cosmetics, the conversation around face filters, the Roombas. Like there were a lot of the Alexa. Like there's so many good, cool, updated elements. But as a whole, I think it was a regressive piece of nothing. Like it doesn't heighten, it doesn't change, and it misses the intent of the first one completely, which seems so strange. Like, how do you miss that? I don't. Again, I really do believe that it was a timing thing or something that had to do with development, where like they just ran out of time, or somebody got their hands on it that shouldn't have had it. And I believe that like the screenwriter and the writers and the story by people on this probably had a pretty good product, and then something went wrong in the production process. That's what I want to believe, because there are elements, there are pieces that really make me think that this had like good bones, as they say, and something happened, and it is what it is now.
It went amok.
It ran amok.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it was new. I don't really think it was interesting as much as I wanted it to be. It was just kind of a letdown. It was not the same, even, because like, suddenly they're maybe good. Like, we're just gonna gloss over the fact that they're still, they don't want children in this one. They've moved on from children and they just want absolute power. Like, we're not even going to talk about that. Like, okay, fine, right? And I mean, like, we have such a history of doing that as a country with people that we like or want to like, like think of, again, Walt Disney, or, just Roald Dahl, a lot of people, right? So that tracks, but still, I hate that we're just kind of like perpetuating that here. And it just felt really regressive. And I think a lot of the reason why it did is because, those things, like before we had really strong women in this one, like the women were so flippy floppy. They were kind of nothing characters. It felt like there was really nothing to define them or to make me like them or want to root for them. Which, was such a big bummer. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to come into this liking it. I wanted to come into this ready, but it just wasn't it.
It wasn't it.
Yeah. Who was this for, Eric?
Fuck. I don't know who it was for.
It was for it was for money. It was for the
Yeah, it
shareholders.
was
It
for
was for executives.
for big Disney, I guess.
It was
like,
for nobody because there was so much nothingness and so much regression even in like the own lore of like, you know, the
yeah.
first one, like walking back so many of those things. Like it really was for nobody, which sucks because I wanted it to be for me again.
I wanted it to be for me too. I was so ready for a Hocus Pocus 2, and I could not believe that it was happening, and I was so excited. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is the
Unforge.
this is what it is.
Unforge. Yeah.
Big unforge.
Did you like it?
No, I didn't like it. Did
Yeah.
you?
No, I didn't like it. I think, like you said, some of the jokes, like the whole Walgreens thing, was hilarious. And it was so hilarious because it was just so over the top. It kind of
It was
reminded me a little bit
fun.
of the Krispy Kreme moment in Power Rangers. And
Yes.
I was all about it. I thought it
Oh,
was so cute. But
oh
but
my god.
I really like the original dance number that happened. Like, I don't know. I feel like so many times I was just absolutely taken out of this movie. And because I wanted to love it so much, like, sometimes it'll be like I way overhyped it or something, but like, I mean, Bette Midler was back and she was gonna do the voice and they were gonna do the thing and like everybody came back. I was so stoked. I Yeah, they really needed to take their time and do something that was a service to the fans and that wasn't just like a cash grab because that's
Yeah.
really what this feels like. And that's like it feels like a slap in the face.
Yeah, it just
I feel very
sucks.
strongly about this.
it's just an unfortunate reality that this movie was bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Oh my God. Well, I think that's it.
We did it.
We
We've-
hocused and we pocused.
We did it. Yeah, I was trying to think of another Hocus Pocus. I don't know. Yeah, we did it. Congrats to us.
Yeah, I was thinking abracadabra or
we
the little cute like I Dream of Jeannie like little
Nose
thing.
wiggle.
Oh no, or the no, that's not her. That's Bewitched. Bewitched. Thank you.
Oh, Bewitched.
That's
yeah.
the less problematic one. Anyways, so thank you so much for listening. We really love and appreciate you. You've been here for over 3 years with us, and wow, we've grown. You've grown.
We've all grown.
Oh my God, how
Can
cool.
you believe it? 3 years of NOTstalgia. Thank you for being here. And what would be so lovely is in our 3 years, if you would do us a huge favor, if you haven't already, we're assuming you haven't. If you haven't, that's okay. You can do it now. Please do not forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on social media. Again, we're playing the game. It helps us significantly in finding new audience members, and we thank you so much for being here. And you know what? You don't even have to do it, but like, please do it. But like, you don't have to, but like, please do it.
Oh my God, I would totally do it for you if you like asked me to. Like just
yeah,
totally.
Just know that like if you asked us to like rate your show, like we would.
Like, we totally would.
So like, I don't know if that like is gonna influence like if you like rate our show, but like if it does, like that'd be great.
If it does, that would be cool. Yeah. If you want to reach out, you can email us, notstalgiapodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on the social medias. We're most active on Instagram, and I keep saying we're gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, but you know what? God,
One day.
I don't have the mental capacity right now. My mental health is shit, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's been a rough time.
It's been a rough time, but anyways, yeah, send us your suggestions, whatever. We're super into it. 3 years. What do you want to hear? There's still so much. We have like an Excel document that has like thousands of remakes to do.
Yeah.
So help us choose. That would be so cool.
I feel like half the ones that we've done recently also were just announced in the time that we've been a podcast.
Oh
like,
my God, there's
a lot of them just keep getting added, and we're like, okay.
There's
we
like
got
10
stuff.
more that were announced like this month or that just came out this month.
Yeah.
That like I'm like, we don't have time to do all of this.
I know, it's wild.
Anyways, thank you again so much. Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Our editing is by Danny Barkley. Thank you again for listening, and thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute, babies.
And stay critical, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
You enter the dungeon and see the evil wizard pointing his wand directly at you. He says, "Show me a funny and delightful actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast, or I'll consume your souls!" What do?
I take out my phone and find Quest Friends Forever on Spotify.
I show him how to find Quest Friends Forever on Apple Podcasts.
I share the Quest Friends Forever Instagram and YouTube pages with him.
And you all get critical hits!
Yay!
Quest Friends Forever is an actual play podcast starring 4 friends with varying levels of Dungeons & Dragons experience. Join us for new episodes every other Wednesday as we embark on fantasy adventures, play fast and loose with the rules, and laugh at each other's shenanigans. No prior D&D knowledge is required to listen, so everyone can feel free to join the fun. Quest Friends 4, that's the number 4, like how there's 4 of us, ever. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Quest Friends Forever.